Here's a little video that I made about changing out a central air home air conditioning unit. I've been in air conditioning 42 years, but it's been automotive air conditioning. So this is a little disclaimer here. Basically, air conditioning is air conditioning. The principles are the same. But of course, this is 220, can be very dangerous. The thermostat wiring is low voltage 24 volt. It's safe. You'll need to have a lot of different skills in doing a job like this. You have to be able to pour concrete, work with sheet metal, use silver solder, know a little bit about wiring. You'll need to have a good acetylene torch to do your silver soldering. You'll need a good set of gauges to charge the unit, and you'll need a vacuum pump to pull a vacuum. You'll also need a good ohm meter, voltmeter, basic hand tools, and a tubing cutter. And of course you'll also need Freon, whatever type yours uses. Mine used R22. It came charged from factory with Freon, so read your instructions very carefully. Your unit may come pre-charged. I also purchased a sight glass for the Freon, much like your car uses, or at least the old cars use sight glasses. And I also bought a dryer, which this unit didn't come with a dryer, and I like to have one. The purpose of the dryer, of course, is to remove moisture from the system, and the one I used was made by Parker, and I've used that in automotive for years. The unit you see in this photo is a ream unit, and of course it's already installed. So let me go over a little bit with you what I've done here. I'm taking an old round carrier unit that I used in my home, and it had a bad contactor relay, and I didn't want to junk the unit, couldn't get anything for it, so I took it out to my automotive shop and installed it. So that's the reason you're seeing two different units here. I doubt that you'll be able to find anyone that'll sell you an air conditioning unit wholesale. Now, I have a friend that's in central air conditioning business, and he sold me a unit. So unless you have a way to buy it, you may not want to take on this job. Another thing to consider is, will they cover your warranty if you buy it either online or whatever? Are they going to warrant your unit? If you're not a professional, consider that. There's a lot of information available online, especially from contractors that sell air conditioning parts, that can help you with doing this kind of a job. So do your research, do your homework before you get started on this. Okay, now if you don't have a pad, if you're starting from scratch, pour a pad at least 4 inches. Make sure that you pour it large enough, of course. Make sure it's level. And I use Sacrete for this. The old carrier round unit had a round pad, of course, and I had to break that up with a sledge and move that out of the way and make a form. Be sure when you pour your pad that you leave enough room for your tubing to come into the unit, or your wiring, whatever. Now this unit, like I said, is 220, so be careful. The blue arrow is the fuse box. Now 220 goes to this unit full time. It doesn't go through the thermostat or anything like that. The thermostat uses a separate low voltage transformer to control the contactor relay within this air conditioning unit. It switches the 220, 240 on. The yellow arrow, of course, is the 220 going in, called line in. That'll be your 220, 240 going in. The tube shown by the red arrow encloses the Freon suction line, the larger of the two lines. Now the high pressure line is the smaller, and it is shown by the black arrow. Thermostatic wiring is also enclosed by this tube that is shown with the red arrow. Now after the unit is installed on your pad, you need to wire it, and you need to hook up your air conditioning lines. And if they don't match, you'll need some adapters if the sizes are different, or you can buy a tapered tubing tool online, as I did, and resize those lines. The dryer and the sight glass, if you use one, will go in the high pressure line. They'll go right side by side, right together. If you'll clean your tubing real good, or if it is new tubing, I have found it better personally not to use flux. I like to use just plain silver solder. It'll work out just fine. Do not use anything but silver solder. Don't use regular solder. It's not strong enough or heat resistant. And of course don't braze it, because brass is porous and it will leak. I've seen a lot of units that were just set on the concrete pad, not bolted down. Personally, I went to secure it, and I did with like 4 concrete screws. Okay, if you've got your unit mounted and wired, let's move on. Now there's going to be a little bit more about wiring later on in this video, but let's move on to the inside of the house. I'm doing a lot of this from memory because this has been 2 or 3 years ago. But my contractor friend ordered this air conditioning unit, of course ordered the correct size, and he also ordered a universal evaporator core that you see here, the gray unit, that goes inside your furnace sheet metal in the plenum chamber, they call it. I wish I had more detailed photos of this job, but I of course had no idea I was going to put it on YouTube. But you can see an evaporator later on. You can see the carrier evaporator that I'm going to install at my shop. Now this unit already had a sheet metal box built around it, so I took the sides off of it, the end off of it, and just used the faceplate as you see here and installed it in that way. Now you'll have to make some brackets to hang that evaporator inside that sheet metal plenum chamber. And when you mount that in the plenum chamber, make sure it's mounted at a slight tilt so it'll drain out the drain hole, the drain pipe. You can see the copper drain pipe here in this photo, going down to the pump that pumps the condensation out. Of course, all air conditioning units put out condensation, and this pumps it straight up the line into the sewer line. This black and white sump pump you see right below the evaporator core has a switch built in it and a float, and it turns on automatically when there's enough condensation, enough water in it. It pumps it up the line into the sewer line automatically and very quietly. Now if your unit is located higher, you probably won't need a condensation pump. Mine was located in the basement. The sewer lines were above it, so it had to be pumped up.